Amy Coney Barrett is now Justice Barrett, having been officially sworn in as the newest Supreme Court justice after what many Democrats are calling an illegitimate process. Minority Leader Schumer is saying Republicans will regret her confirmation. Do you think they will?
Yes. Well, first, let me say, yes, I do think the Republicans will regret not only what they did here, but what they did in Merrick Garland at the end of 2016. They've twice now bent the rules and cracked them and broken them to basically seize power in the Supreme Court and politicize the Supreme Court. And I do think it's going to lead, in my own view, assuming the election turns out like I think, where Joe Biden will get elected and the Democrats will most likely take the Senate, it will bring a change to the filibuster rule. And I think actually it will help the Senate because it will make it a legislative body again rather than a body of obstruction. Second is I think it will also lead to expansion of the circuit court, appellate court, lower areas, which they should have been doing anyway. And the Democrats are going to move aggressively in filling up the court where caseload is. I do think the Republicans made a mistake. I also think Amy Coney Barrett made a mistake. She should not have gone to the White House, given there's a potential you have a contested election. I think it actually damaged her independence and her sense of being above politics like the court. I actually think it was a bad thing. And you notice the contrast, only Thomas went and none of the other justices went. I think it actually showed a lack of self-awareness of what's going on by her early on.
Yeah, the optics weren't good, but let me ask you this. Do you think expanding the Supreme Court is the answer to the Republicans' Supreme Court packing?
No, I don't think it is, and I think that I don't want to. The vice president's already said he's going to have a commission to study. I think actually we should step back and try to not only say the Supreme Court, but the entire legal system, how to depoliticize what's happening. The Republicans, and McConnell's been upfront about this, have went to take a third institution, the third leg of checks and balances, and politicize the entire process. I think we should step back, try to figure out a way how to scrub it from that. And I also think part of that process will be a series of things that the bipartisan commission, the vice president's recommended, are the right things to do. What I do think you should do is get back to legislating. And I'll give you an example of this, and I'll be real quick. We all talk about defending Roe v. Wade at the Supreme Court, appropriately. But in well over 80% of the counties in the United States, you cannot get an abortion because of what's happening at the state legislature level and state government. Now, to me, what we should be talking about is winning elections and then implementing our policies across the country, whether that's making sure that women are not in alleys, gay and lesbian couples are not back in the closet, immigrants aren't put back on boats, workers are not working in sweatshops, and we continue to understand that nobody wants a bridge back to 1955, which is exactly where Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, and the Supreme Court right now want to take us. America doesn't want to go back to 1955. They want to look back. They want to look to 2055 and say, where are we going? And that's where there's going to be now a real gulf between the American people and the Supreme Court. And Chief Justice Roberts knows that this will tear the court apart.
Rahm, you obviously know Joe Biden well, having worked with him in the Obama White House. And you recently got emotional talking about Biden's character. What is it about him that brought you to tears?
Well, I've known the vice president for 20 years, longer actually, going back to working for President Clinton. My father had passed away, and it was between the Jewish holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, which had its own emotional moment. And one of the first phone calls I got was from Joe. And it was also the first time I really kind of, outside of my brothers and my mother and my wife, my kids had talked about my dad. And it just, I was surprised, not only that, of that kind of emotion, but it was his decency. He's running for president, et cetera. I've got, obviously, President Obama called, President Clinton called, Speaker Pelosi, but he was the first. And it was one of the first, and it just touched me in talking about it. But I will give also another story. My middle daughter, Alana, and I were going back to Chicago. We went with the vice president. It was a trip. I can't remember why. We were chief of staff. And the vice president has a cabin on Air Force Two. And he invited Alana, she was about 12 or 13 at that point, to the front of the cabin to be with him for a half hour just to talk about where she was in her studies, et cetera. And so both on the emotional pain of losing my father in '93 and then the joy of him taking time with my daughter, not just to say hello, but to really talk to her and spend time with her. That is the decency of this man. And I think at this cross current in America, where different cultures, societal, economic pressures are there, his decency for others is a great anecdote that I think the country, and solve that I think the country would actually appreciate.
There you go, Rahm. It's always such a pleasure and an honor to have you with us, because we love talking to you. So please continue to come back and hang with us. Of course, we're going now because we're going to break.
Crossed, man.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, everything that's flexible, that moves, cross it. We'll be right
You're
back.
talking to a former ballet dancer. I'm totally with you.